Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Chaplain Kristen Melton. It's nice to see you all. And this morning we have with us Dr. Michael Sanger and Dr. Drew Tomberlin that'll be talking with us about the Whole Health Initiative and the Empower Veterans Program. Just as a word of notification, we are recording this so that anyone that would like to review it later can view it on the classroom, or for those that weren't able to be with us today, they'll be able to view it and to catch up. And with that, good morning, Dr. Sanger, and take it away.
Good morning. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you pretty well.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
Yes.
So, I'm thankful that Chaplain Tomlin and I can spend some time talking with you this morning. We're going to do a bit, my part is going to be a bit of a whirlwind overview for whole health and spirituality. And there's some things that may tease you in terms of opportunities to unlearn some things and to learn some new tools for your toolbox to help veterans where the veteran is. And before we get started, we can practice just a little bit of a stop tool that we do in the Empower Veteran Program. And take a moment, just where you are, set your other electronic devices down. Notice your feet on the floor, perhaps the pressure, your weight of your body on the chair. And just notice you're here right now. And I'm thankful to be here right now speaking to you from New Orleans, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the large whole health system for the VA, but also a part of it that is starting in the VA that can be an additional important asset for helping the most challenged veterans. What we're going to be talking about fits into one of the lanes of effort that the VA modernization is striving toward, and that includes being able to help veterans engage in lifelong health, well-being, and resilience. And so this whole health system redesign that was adopted by the National Leadership Council in 2016 is still ongoing and supported by the executive in charge and by our secretary. To give you a little bit of perspective of what is often done at local VA facilities, if you look on the left, the y-axis, you can see different degrees of need for a particular veteran. So there's some veterans with low biopsychosocial spiritual needs. They would be at the bottom left corner. And there's some veterans with high psychosocial spiritual needs, and they are more likely than not to show up a fair amount in the emergency department, in specialty clinics, especially pain clinics, and looking for, can't we redo the acupuncture for another 10 weeks? All of those things are important parts of our larger system, and they may be overused if veterans with severe pain and life dysfunction don't see the value in pursuing self-care. There are a lot of things that are available at our local VAs, sometimes not in enough capacity, but they're already available. Things like the chaplain, things like mindfulness, mental health care, at least a volunteer doing some type of movement therapy, whether it's yoga or Tai Chi. But these and other things are often underutilized, including the MOVE program, cognitive behavioral therapy for pain, physical therapy, occupational therapy, because the veteran does not understand how doing those things helps them live their fullest life. And their fullest life may include getting in touch with the spiritual part of their life. Those experiences may include, as you know, listening to music, being part of formal or informal religious practices, and even forest bathing. But in trying to help people connect some of these parts to what matters most, that's where we need whole health coaching at the appropriate intensity. So a veteran who needs a little bit and not a lot of coaching because they don't have a lot of biopsychosocial spiritual needs, they're easier to reach. But that easier to reach group is not going to be the same as a group that may be more challenged. So in this model, the veterans that are the quote-unquote easiest 20%, they don't see themselves as being down, and they are quite functional. They've got a fair amount of quality of life that they're experiencing right now, and an app, a whole health introduction for 2 hours from the executive order, online resources, pamphlets, these things would potentially help that veteran go find out what it is that's most important and start living that. For any of these veterans, though, we need to stop and have a little bit of word of caution that just adding a little bit or this or that problem, quote unquote, has unintended consequences. So as you all are thinking about the roles that you currently play and might play in this larger whole health system, you are going to be able to help guide your facility leaders and colleagues in not just adding an hour or a series of hours of chaplain spirituality groups and think we've checked the box, or adding a mindfulness app. We need to think in terms of this larger system and how can we get the right person engaging the veteran with the right level of coaching so that the rest of us can do our jobs to help that veteran. And to help that veteran engage in lifelong health, well-being, and resilience. So it's not about us. It's not about us being experts. But for these middle 70% of veterans, think about the role of the newly deploying whole health coaches. They may be GS 7 to 9 whole health coaches. They may be GS 6 to 8 mental health peers, or GS 6 to 8 mental health partners. A lot of terminology. But those folks are additionally mentored in motivational interviewing to use the personal health plan to draw out from the veterans what matters most and to create a plan moving forward. For the veterans that are most upside down, that none of these things are working in the larger system, that's where EVP, the Empower Veteran Program, can come into play. There are going to be quotations here that you can download and review later. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review this slide set already. But I think it's important to recognize that the theoretical framework upon which we're basing this is built into a larger history of philosophy and theology. And so we understand that to despair is suffering without meaning. The Empower Veteran Program is meant to bring intensive whole health coaches for well-being to veterans with complex pain that are considering suicide as an option, that are numbing the pains of their life, psychosocial, spiritual, existential, perhaps with substances or opioids. And we're talking about 10% of veterans nationally, 5,000 at the average VA serving 50,000 veterans. A lot of people. So chronic pain, opioid crisis, suicide prevention is everybody's business. And you all know that the hardest hit areas are areas where we also have lots of veterans. For opioid deaths, for suicide deaths. And so the idea of the Empower Veteran Program is this skills before pills, where we're bringing intensive self-care training that's thinking about chronic pain not only as physical, but social. If the veteran has felt disrespected most of their life, if they haven't had opportunities for education, for employment, if they carry the burden of incompletely treated PTSD, of moral injury, of existential crisis, of relational disturbances, of sleep disturbances. So that's what EVP is. And it's starting in a 10-week program at week 1 with most of the people having moderately severe major depression, often with PTSD and substance abuse, usually with a third of the people saying that they've had recent thoughts that they'd be better off dead. And at week 10, showing a clinical step down in their major depression symptoms, a decrease in pain interference, pain catastrophizing, the ability to get up and walk at a little bit brisker pace. And from a QI perspective, associated decrease in opioids. And EVP, by the way, is not a program to decrease opioids, but as people are learning skills to deal with the trauma, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations that keep creeping back, they don't need the opioids if they were using that as a numbing mechanism. So EVP is about whole health, and there are paradigm shifts towards a well-being journey that's biopsychosocial spiritual, that's active self-care training, and it's really this interdisciplinary whole health, moving away from a fragmented passive approach. It's using the circle of health with me in the center, what motivates me, my mission, aspiration, purpose, looking at the 8 self-care areas. And this 10-week program is bringing together a team, a highly interdependent, transdisciplinary team of coaches. And the first of the 3 hours each week, like 10 Tuesday mornings, would be the EVP Whole Health Coach, who's a specially trained EVP chaplain, followed by a psychologist that's specially trained, followed by a specially mentored physical therapist. And Drew is going to be able to get into some of the details of EVP Whole Health. And I'm going to give you an overview a little bit later of this acceptance and commitment therapy, a 3rd-generation behavioral therapy, and of mindful movement. We also have intensive case management available through social workers and a little bit of MD involvement if need be, and with support of some great clerks, MSAs. So in all of these roles, the transdisciplinary coaches are accepting and living up to this veteran-centric listening mode of becoming trustworthy in the eyes of the veteran who have sensed betrayal, being a coach instead of an expert, looking to what the veteran's values are as the internal motivation for that veteran and drawing that out, being mindful, thinking about this from the perspective of how can this veteran learn life skills that actually help that veteran 24/7. Doing that coaching through a motivational interviewing framework so that, as opposed to me right now being didactic and speaking a lot, asking questions, drawing the veteran out, understanding the veteran's motivations and the veteran's plans to move forward. And it's about teamwork. This is not about any one member. It's a team. So in Atlanta, and we've spread 2 years ago to Baltimore, but in Atlanta, we've already trained 800 veterans. These are the tip of the iceberg because there's still probably 10 to 16,000 veterans to be reached in Atlanta. But these are folks that come with high risk from opioids, suicidal ideations, from predictive analytics, the storm report. They also are highly challenging to their primary care team, to the director's office. They're often using a lot of resources, but not seeming to feel the benefit in the quality of life that they have. And so this 10-week coaching program, again, is skills training by this integrated team, motivated by their life mission. And it ends up at week 10, on average, with less risk, less depression, often veterans asking for help in gradually tapering opioids, saying the pain's not in control anymore. I'm not in that dark place anymore. And being motivated, the veteran's own vision of their best future life, their mission, aspiration, purpose, rather than by me telling them or me doing for them. And this is ready to spread. So the EVP journey starts from a place of being stuck where medications and procedures have often failed. A little factoid for you, our most evidence-based medicine for chronic pain, duloxetine, can only help about a third of people have a third less pain. So mostly the medications will not help. They will help some, but mostly they won't help, and mostly they're not opioids. So the veterans are referred to us primarily from primary care, but even more so from mental health providers whose toolbox hasn't helped that particular veteran. And the veteran, because of the listening skills, the being present skills of the chaplain, starts to see a value in themselves from the team. And the chaplain and others on the team are able to create this mindful awareness and safe space where the veteran starts accepting what is and thinking about what is it that really gives my life meaning and purpose, and starting to take action on that with coaching that comes in the group and individually, as Chaplain Tom Merlin will talk about. So Chaplain Tom Merlin, would you change pace for us here and tell us a little bit about the first of the 3 hours?
Good morning. How are you all doing? As the chaplain whole health coach with the Empower Veterans program, it's a challenge because we all have our pastoral toolkits which we are comfortable with. But as an EVP whole health coach, I was asked to put aside what I was comfortable with and to develop a new tool bag that was based on coaching skills that I recognized that I had. I have friends, chaplains, who call me up and they want to be involved with the whole health program, and they can see themselves as a whole health coach. And I share with them, if you want to be in the whole health coach and you want to compete with GS 7, 8s, and 9s, go ahead. The Empower Veterans program, the whole health coach is a GS 12 chaplain. It's individual and it's group. I meet every day. Some days I have 2 groups. Some days, on Mondays and Fridays, I have 1. But I meet with the groups individually, as a group. And then if they need individual coaching, they get that. We work with personal health planning, helping the veteran discover that the best years of their life is not behind them, it's in front of them. We use motivational interviewing, we use problem-solving therapy, and we also our roots are found in the acceptance and commitment therapy. Mindfulness training is one of the great tools that we offer our veterans. What does it mean to hold space? I want to share a story with you, and then we'll get the tail end of it a little bit later. A couple months ago, I was had a new women's only group, finished the first class. Veteran said, "Chaplain, I need to talk with you." I said, "Great." So went outside of the room. The veteran said, "I need you to lay hands on me and pray for me." And I said, "I can't do that." And she said, "F you. What can you do?" "I need a Bible. Can you bring me a Bible?" I said, "I can't bring you a Bible." "What is your job?" "I thought chaplains love to pray and bring Bibles. That's what I need, and you can't help me." I shared, "I can refer you," and she said, "Oh, sure you can," and walked away. I work with the veterans individually through weekly telephone calls. The purpose of the call is for the veteran to be heard and to be accepted where the veteran is, and to realize veteran is priceless. It's during these calls that we are able to build trust with the veterans, because most veterans in our groups do not trust the VA or the government. They're dealing with moral injury. They have other crises that are being exhibited through their chronic pain. Michael, next slide. Michael? Okay. The whole health, we start off with a mindfulness exercise. Then we review what we did last week. We talk about what we're going to do during the next week, during this particular class, and then we finish with a second mindfulness exercise. Part of the role that I have is introducing veterans to mindfulness. We do this in two ways. We introduce it, we give them a 2-set DVD, we work with them every week, and then we share with them the VA app Mindfulness Coach. For anyone who has a smartphone, you go to your app store, type in Mindfulness Coach, it will pop up, and we encourage the veterans to download it. We show them how that it explains what mindfulness is, how they can track their progress, how they can push the practice button and find all a great selection of mindfulness exercises that will help the veterans. One of the quotes that I like is from Tachnaik Hain: "The greatest gift we can offer anyone is our true presence." What I'd like to do now is I would like to share a mindfulness exercise with you. This is one that we do at the end of our week 2 class. And in mindfulness, we can get all caught up in our thoughts and our feelings, and we can begin to believe that we are our thoughts and our feelings. We use mindfulness as an opportunity for the veteran to acknowledge the thoughts, to acknowledge the feeling, and then to allow them to just slip through their mind instead of clinging to them. Allowing the opportunity for the veteran to find the veteran self in the present moment. I ask that if you've got a cell phone, that you turn it off or that you put it on vibrate. I invite you to find a position in which you feel supported and alert. Place both feet flat on the floor. Allow your hands to rest on your lap or the sides of your chair. You may wish to rest your gaze downward on a spot in front of you. If you prefer, you can gently close your eyes. Begin to notice all the sounds around you without judging whether they are good or bad. Let them be there. Sounds might be internal, like your breathing or digestion. Sounds might be close by, people moving around or talking. They might be more distant. You're just hearing what's there, simply letting sounds arrive at your door. As you let them come to you, rest in your awareness of hearing. You sit here. You are still breathing. You still have your bodily feelings, including perhaps your pain. Right now, you're paying attention to sounds. What is your experience of sounds in this moment? In this moment. You observe other sensations, thoughts or feelings arising. Gently acknowledge their presence. Let them be there. Then return your attention to sounds and the silence around them. You notice your attention wandering. Simply, gently acknowledge it. Noticing allows you to gently bring yourself back to the present moment, to the sounds and the silence around them. There is no right or wrong way to pay attention to sounds. You are simply getting used to being aware of your experiences in the present moment. Now, let's take a moment together, just hearing what's there. Allowing sounds to arrive, resting in your awareness of hearing. As you draw near to the close of this exercise, imagine what you will see when you refocus your gaze or open your eyes. When you are ready, gently refocus, open your eyes, and look around. Thank you for joining me in this mindfulness exercise. Week 8 is one of the powerful weeks in the Empower Veterans program because it is in week 8 that we challenge the veterans to give themselves the gift of forgiveness. And forgiveness is something veterans just don't know how to do well. They hold on to things that they shouldn't hold on to. They don't know how to let go. Some view forgiveness as weakness. We show them that forgiveness is a choice, something you might choose to do. Forgiveness is perhaps being willing to let the pain of betrayal or guilt just be there. The pain of what happened to me or what I did. Accepting that this is the way things are. Then asking myself, can I give myself permission to still have a fuller life, to move forward in the direction of what I value the most? And veterans don't know how at this point to give themselves that gift. Let's talk about the weekly coaching calls for a minute. They're individualized and they're to develop a sense of self and trust-worth with the veteran. I shared with you all my experience with the veteran during the first week of EVP. During the 7th week, during our coaching call, the veteran thanked me and shared how scared the veteran was, because the veteran was in fear that she had contracted AIDS. On week 6 of EVP, her test came back positive, and she has an 8-year-old child that she needed to talk to. Because of the coaching environment, the veteran felt safe to share where she was and to make plans for where she needed to be based on her values and her goals. She asked if we could do a mindfulness practice. So over the phone, we did the self-compassion practice. She thanked me for being her coach. What does it mean to be an EVP whole health coach? What I'd like to do right now is to share a couple of experiences that I've had in the classroom. Forgiveness, the gift we give ourselves. This is something that veterans struggle with. As we start this class, we do the self-compassion practice. And in the self-compassion practice, we bring out that you may be dissatisfied with where you are in life or with your status in life. We ask if they want to bring up something that they have no control over and just let it be there. Going through the practice, as I'm doing it, I'm watching the group. There's a veteran who can no longer keep her eyes shut. Her foot starts bouncing off the ground, starts bouncing, patting. She begins to sweat. She begins to rub her hands. She's truly uncomfortable. We finish. I said, "What did you experience?" She said, "I experienced hell." Do you know why I joined the Army? I joined the fucking Army to be a cook. I've always wanted to own a restaurant. My daddy told me don't join the Army. But the recruiter told me I'd be a cook and they'd teach me how to do everything. When I came out, I could open my own restaurant. I joined to be a cook. I didn't join to go to Afghanistan. I didn't join to go to war. I joined to be a cook. And I wound up on a convoy. Yeah. I did the rifle range, but I'm a cook. I'm not a warrior, I'm a cook. And they put me in the convoy. They put me on the goddamn 50 cal. Can you believe that? They put me on a 50 cal and I'd never seen one before I got on it. There was an explosion. I saw a car coming and I had opened up on the car. I didn't know what to do. I just kept pushing that trigger until I couldn't push it any longer. We were safe. I went out. and I'd murdered a family. You couldn't even tell what they were. But there was a father and there was a mother and 3 small children. You asked me to have compassion for myself. You asked me to forgive myself. How in the hell can I forgive myself for what I've done? As she cried, another veteran put her hand on her shoulders, said, yeah. My recruiter lied to me. I wanted to be a dental hygienist, and my recruiter told me I'd get a 2-year college course, be in a dental clinic for 2 years, and I'd be out. I never saw the dental clinic. It's hard. Another veteran shared, I tried to live with what I've done, and that's why I'm here. The veteran said, it's so hard. Every time I look at my child, I see those children. Another veteran said, I didn't have to go to war. But when I was 18, I knew more than anyone else. My daddy gave me the car and told me I could go to the game and come home from the game. He knew what time the game was over and I'd better be home at 11:30. I went to the game and my friends wanted to go drinking. So we left during the first quarter and had a great time. Or at least I thought it was at the time. But on the way home, I caused an accident and my best friend was killed. It's hard to forgive yourself. The veteran thanked the group for listening to her. During our call, the veteran said, you are right. I have to learn to forgive myself. Thank you for helping me. Thank you all for your time. Michael?
Thank you, Drew. I want just for us to reflect for a moment what Drew was describing and what he did and what he chose not to do to hold that space for veterans to process, veterans to veterans. It wasn't a gripe group. It wasn't them wandering wherever. He was facilitating it, but he was doing it in a way for them to process deep things. The picture you see on the screen now is a veteran who has given us permission. All these veterans' pictures, they've given us permission to share their picture and stories. He was a pilot back in 2014, and he was hurting the first time he came in, much bigger than me in height and breadth of shoulders. And he came in initially leather breastplate with greaves and a helmet from having ridden his motorcycle, because that was the only thing that gave him a little bit of pleasure in life. But learning these skills, this mindful awareness practice that Drew is talking about, starting to put some of these things into play, allowed him to not run from the images, the thoughts, the feelings, to numb himself, to swing between being withdrawn and lashing out at the people that he loved and loved him. And he said, it's a lifesaver for me. And he was no longer considering suicide as a way out. He also asked his provider to help him slowly taper off the opioids, because he did not want to be numb to life anymore. In terms of some of the other parts of EVP, we're going to go faster, but these will be here for your reference. In the acceptance and commitment therapy portion, we are using different tools than we might use for things that were external problems. If I've got a room full of tacks, I can learn to not step on the tacks. But if I have tacks inside, spiritually, emotionally, social ills, I can't use avoidance as a successful strategy to have a high quality of life. And so with ACT, we let veterans explore, and you're hearing hopefully that this is a lot of experience as opposed to lecture. But in the class, we have them not think about pizza, which, as you may guess, didn't work that well, and offer another approach of willingness, letting the things that are unpleasant be there. And in the cartoon, you can't get rid of your fears, but you can learn to live with them. So the smaller, less threatening character at the end of the couch is saying, more tea. It's learning, once we're grounded and once we know what our values are, to then take committed action, small, specific steps to live out that valued life, even as barriers arise. We use metaphors like the rock and the wave intending to go to the shore and finding a way around that barrier. And the ACT EVP psychologist discusses and leads it, facilitates a discussion with the group. What would it look like to move around some of the barriers in your life? So this is all about developing psychological flexibility, and it very much relies on the tools that Drew is helping to train the veterans in and explore experience in the first of the 3 hours, the mindfulness and mindful awareness. Some more stories from veterans. And the link there on the slide that you can pull up, I think, from the PDF, is to a 9-minute video where these real veterans, not actors, are telling why they valued EVP and why other veterans who are totally upside down should explore EVP. In terms of the last of the 3 hours mindful movement, we go through a series of things each week, a little bit of walking break or movement of our legs in our chair, relearning some of the complexity of our body and of pain, and doing a little motion is lotion exercises that builds up to being able to use our bodies fluidly in 15 minutes of Tai Chi or chair yoga. So this is becoming aware of those thoughts of my body is falling apart, the feeling that I can't take it, I'm so afraid and I'm so angry and pissed off at where I am, and understanding how those thoughts and feelings may increase this pain as an alarm system threat in me and actually increase my pain. But as I'm noticing these things and letting thoughts be thoughts, feelings be feelings, I notice that I'm not those things. I'm not controlled by those things. And I can start exploring my body, start feeling safe in my body, trying small things out and building on that to where I can learn things like Tai Chi that could help me achieve important goals because of, along the way, slowly developing flexibility and strength and balance. So there are lots of risks if we don't invest in each facility having an EVP. These challenging veterans won't get better with an app. They won't get better with a didactic session, even from the best teacher. Many of them won't get better with a prayer. That's not to deny the power of prayer or the importance. But many of these veterans need more than that, more than a little sprinkling of whole health or of spirituality. EVP is modeled to actually save money by applying the right intensity and coaching to the right group of veterans. And we've got, toward the end of these slides, lots of feedback from chiefs of staff, spouses, providers. We have already spread to VA Maryland, and we're looking to spread to other sites. There are a couple dozen VAs that are interested, and a couple are putting their own money down on the line. And if you'd like to talk with Drew and I another time, we'd be happy to process what that might look in your setting and what it would take in order to help slowly have change happen there as part of the whole health system redesign. EVP can be brought on with a new specialized unit, this 4+4 concept, where every 10 weeks, 8 groups would be trained. And from the figure, you can see the lighter blue groups, there would be 4 groups each 10 weeks that would actually be trained at the main VA facility, for instance. And 4 rural groups that would be trained with live video telehealth to their rural CBOC, where groups of veterans don't have to travel as far. And for instance, in the red, you can see a group that would be meeting for 10 Tuesday mornings, and then a new Tuesday morning group would start. And that would be a group that was facilitated by this chaplain, psychologist, physical therapist beaming into their rural CBOC. And you can see the other times that rural CBOCs would have their own EVP group. You can see other times that the team of coaches would be doing face-to-face training in the main facility. You can see that the chaplain has the largest FTE role out of all the different team members, and that's because of what Drew described in terms of the individualized weekly telephone calls for each veteran each week. There's a way to ramp this up. We've already successfully applied this in Baltimore with VA Maryland learning, but it would mean that this new EVP team would spend half their time for the first 4 weeks just learning to excel in their new roles and learn to become a team, as well as recruit veterans that will be filling in those 8 different groups. So there's intensive mentoring before the groups start at the new facility, and there's intensive mentoring feedback to really master these skills after EVP has begun. We've got lots of support for many quarters. I'm thankful for support as well from Chaplain Lesher. But we also have very strong support from the Office of Mental Health, from the Office of Patient-Centered Care that oversees the whole health rollout, from medical specialties that oversees pain management. And we've been blessed to have strong leadership in Atlanta and Vision 7 to help us do this as well, including Chief Chaplain Goldstrom. I'd like to thank the team that lets this be possible to train these 800 veterans to see a difference in their life and living out what matters most. And we will have some time for questions now. And as you're unmuting yourself and asking a question, I've got other slides at the end here with lots of references, excellent resources to become more aware of some of the horror of war, other resources that you'll see at the end here as well. So what questions do you have?
I'm going to jump in here real quick. This is Chaplain Kristen. Actually, I had a question for Chaplain Tomberlin. In his first example story, he was sharing the example of a woman that had asked for prayer and also for a Bible, and he said that he could not provide that. And so we have a couple of concerned individuals. So if Chaplain Tomberlin is still available to explain the difference in his role as a whole health coach from a chaplain, and maybe explain why he could not do that in that role, I think that would put some minds to rest.
As a coach, I don't have it. If I have a pastoral role with the veteran, I cannot have a coaching role with the veteran. So the reason that I gave that example was the back end when we were doing the coaching call,
Mm-hmm.
and we had developed trust. She shared with me the challenges of testing positive for AIDS with an 8-year-old son as a single mother.
Right.
That conversation would have never happened had I gone down the pastoral road with this veteran.
Okay.
That's one of the challenges of being the EVP coach, is you're their coach. There are other chaplains available that I refer to when a veteran requests prayer and so on.
Okay.
Does
So
that help to answer
that's
that
the
question?
difference. Okay.
And if I could just tag on to that, what Drew is modeling there is that he is not taking the bait to pat himself on the back. I'm the expert. I've got the solution for you. He's not giving the veteran the easy way out of struggling with the real deeper issue of I've got HIV and that's shameful and there are consequences and I'm afraid. So by using this motivational interviewing coaching approach, Drew was able to let the veteran struggle, even as Drew was showing this veteran that he valued them, by his weekly calls, if it was irritating or not, and gave them space to be heard and drew them out. What do you really care about? Because we can each, whether we're chaplains, MD, psychologists, whatever, pull out a tool that points to us as the fixer, but he was giving this woman an opportunity to understand what was important to her, what were the real issues, and to see that she actually had choices and some of the power to act on those choices.
Thank
So
you,
that's a great
guys.
question.
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think for our chaplains that still are kind of struggling, it's a good example of clinical boundaries. And so as a whole health coach, there are certain boundaries that are put into place that separate that role and responsibilities from the role of a chaplain. And for those chaplains that have not experienced individuals that do not see chaplains and ministers and pastors as unsafe, there are lots of individuals out there that do not feel comfortable talking to a chaplain or a minister or a pastor, and many times because they themselves have spiritual injuries from well-intentioned individuals that were members of a church body, or may even have been pastors or youth pastors or chaplains. And so for a safe spiritual person to be available as a whole health coach, coming as from being a chaplain, but in a whole health coach role, it's very important that they are able to see that there is a safe person, and what greater healing can come from that as it for those individuals than to see a trained ministry professional that is also willing to give them the space to struggle with their own spiritual injuries. And not to fix it, or not to try to fix it for them, but to sit with them in that as they are trying to heal. And so thank you. That was a good example, Chaplain Tomberlin and Dr. Sanger. And I know I'm seeing all the threads going on, and I agree that there's lots of cases that can go back and forth, but I think we're going to stop there for right now. Does anybody else have a question that does not involve that case? And you can feel free to type it in the box or to come on the line if you would like.
And just a thought from that, I can't see the chat, by the way, but we can respond to chat, Jeff Tomberlin, and if need be, I can help as well. So down the road, we can follow up on the questions in the chat. But even as we're noticing this feeling and thought within us,
right?
The strong emotions that we're sensing, one side or the other, we can take a moment and look at that. From whence does that come? Yeah. What does that say about me? What does that say about my role? And, as we go back to some of our own spiritual roots and are grounded in those things, that allows us to be aware of even our own the tension within us, and then to be ready to be there for that veteran as the veteran needs us.
Thank you for that. And that's for those of you that remember CPE from way back in the day, right? That's what that experience was supposed to provide, was an opportunity for us to wrestle with those things and to sit with them. And so that's also what the whole health coach does. And as chaplains, yes, you can do that as well. When you have individuals that are working with you, you can create that space. But for the purposes of this presentation, we are talking about the difference between a chaplain's role and a whole health coach's role.